Alright, let's finish this last video for History and Lore Season 6. It begins with Robert's rebellion told by Jaime Lannister. He reveals the incidents that led to the role during Robert's rebellion and his eventual title of Kingslayer. Kingslayer. Did I turn up the volume? Yep.
Kingslayer. A word every man and woman in Westeros spits at me, though many can't even name the king I slayed.
Really?
Understand? To them, I'm a symbol of everything they'll never have and a warning that'll never apply, so they can loathe me from the safety of their small lives. Because when a dog goes mad, we put it down. Why not a king? I was never supposed to be on the King's Guard. Oh, as a boy, I dreamed of the White Cloak like all boys, but I was heir to Tywin Lannister, Hand of the King. If he forbade the tides, the waves would cease. Then I was 15, and my father was congratulating me on my new knighthood in the Red Keep. I wonder if that was the last time he was proud of me. That night, there was a knock on my door, and I opened it to find my sister Cersei disguised as a simple servant girl. I hadn't seen her since my father had taken her to court when she was 12. She had grown up.
3 years.
As had I.
Is this the first time they...
that my father planned to marry me off to Lysa Tully. But she could arrange for the king to raise me to the King's Guard so I could stay in the city with her. All I had to do was agree.
What?
I made the obvious objections. Our family, our father, Casterly Rock. Until she asked, is it a rock you want? Or me? Come morning, she had my consent. I would join the King's Guard for her. I would forswear my lands and title for her. I would forsake our family for her. Soon, a royal raven commanded my father to present me to the king during the great tourney at Harrenhal to say my vows. My father erupted in fury. He could not object openly, but he resigned the handship and returned to Casterly Rock, taking Cersei with him. Instead of being together, Cersei and I exchanged places. Then, everything started to fall apart. At Harrenhal, King Aerys made a great show of my investiture. I knelt before him in gleaming armor and swore the oath of the King's Guard. When Sir Gerald Hightower raised me up and put the white cloak on my shoulders, a roar went up from the crowd. I admit, despite my father's anger, I was happy and foolish. That very night,
It's a heavy sword.
Commanding me to return to the Red Keep to guard the Queen and little Prince Viserys. Sir Gerald offered to take that duty himself so I might compete in the tourney, but Aerys refused. He'll win no glory here, the king said. He's mine now, not Tywin's. He'll serve as I see fit. That was when I understood. It was not my skill or valor that had won me this honor. The Mad King had chosen me to spite my father and steal his heir. I wanted to rip off the White Cloak, but it was too late. A King's Guard serves for life. So I upheld my oath, confined to the Red Keep where Varys could watch me and where the headsman could find me if my father displeased the king.
Headsman.
I served the king's pleasure, as he burned Rickard Stark alive and strangled his son, inciting the rebellion. I defended the king's honor against courtiers as his generals lost battle after battle with Robert. I kept the king's secrets, when his pyromancers and caches at wildfire beneath King's Landing. I gave the king counsel when my father's army was at the city gate, and Grand Maester Pycelle lied that my father had come to save him. Many forget that I also tried to defend the king from harm. When the Lannister soldiers poured through the gates, it fell to me to hold the Red Keep as the only King's Guard in the city. I knew we were lost and sent to Aerys, asking his leave to make terms. My man came back with a royal command. Bring me your father's head if you are no traitor. Aerys would have no yielding. His pyromancer was with him, my messenger said. I knew what that meant. Aerys Targaryen was alone in his throne room when I found him, picking at his scabbed and bleeding hands. The fool was always cutting himself on the Iron Throne. Burn them, he kept muttering.
Wow.
Aerys had decided to let Robert be king after all, over the charred bones and ashes of King's Landing. He must have thought his pyromancer was near enough to obey him, but I'd killed him a few minutes before in the courtyard. As I approached the throne, sanity flashed behind the king's eyes for a moment, just long enough to read the look in mine. His eyes grew huge and the royal mouth drooped open in shock. He turned and ran. A single thrust was all it took to end the greatest dynasty the world had ever seen. Beneath
When you put it that
the
way,
eyes of the dead dragons on the
that's-
walls, the last dragon king squealed like a pig and shat himself. So easy, I thought. A king should die harder than this. My father's knights burst into the hall in time to see the last of it, so there was no way for me to vanish and let some braggart steal the glory or blame. I knew at once when I saw the way they looked at me, it would be blame. Lannister or no, I'd been one of Aerys' Kingsguard. I commanded them to announce that the Mad King was dead, and to spare all those who yielded. They asked me if they should proclaim a new king as well. I knew what they meant. Would it be my father, or Robert Baratheon, or maybe the child Viserys who'd fled to Dragonstone? A Targaryen boy king with my father's hand to rule in truth. I thought of how Ned Stark and Robert Baratheon would howl at this end to their great heroic war, and I was tempted. Then I glanced down again at Aerys, his life's blood oozing from the wound and pooling on the floor around him. Proclaim who you bloody well like, I said. I climbed the steps to the Iron Throne and sat on it with my sword across my knees, waiting to see who would come to claim the kingdom.
Wow. Hearing it from his point of view is completely different. Yeah, it's amazing. Wow. I never thought about it like that. Jaime ended the dynasty that lasted 1,000 years. More than 1,000 years? I forget. But, it's very interesting. Alright, let's continue with the Great Sept of Baelor. The High Sparrow examines the founding of the Great Sept of Baelor as well as its namesake, Baelor the Blessed. Okay.
Fire and blood make poor tools, as kings make poor servants. House Targaryen called themselves dragons long after the last beast died. Perhaps it's only fitting that even their humility was monstrous. Men worshipped on Visenya's hill thousands of years before Visenya came and Baelor raised the sanctum that bears his name. The massive dome and towers of the Great Sept of Baelor can be seen from anywhere in the city, but not from the vast countryside that paid for it. Its 7 bells can be heard as far as Dragonstone whenever a king dies.
Whoa.
But none told for the stonemasons, glaziers, and smiths who built it. The Great Sept was built to impress upon a man how much greater the gods are than him. A noble goal, and in that it succeeds. Within the main chamber, the sun streams through a 7-pointed star to illuminate the 7 towering over mortals. The crone with her lantern for lost souls, the mother with her welcoming arms, the father with his scales of justice, the maiden with her purity, the warrior with his sword,
The
smith with his hammer,
The stranger.
and lastly the stranger with his shrouded face.
His back turned.
Pilgrims cross the 7 kingdoms to light candles here at the feet of their gods. But these aren't the gods. The 7 aren't encased in stone in the Great Sept any more than the souls of dead kings are in the tombs below it. To steward his monument to vanity, Baelor summoned the High Septon of the Faith from his ancient seat in Old Town and gifted him with ornate robes and a crown of crystal and gold. And like a fool, the High Septon put on his lord's motley and danced at his lord's table. And with each passing year, the High Septons fell ever lower. How can the flock be kept safe from wolves when the shepherd sleeps in their den? Baelor himself appointed a simple-minded stonemason, believing him the smith reborn. And when he died, Baelor replaced him with an 8-year-old boy, whom Baelor had seen speaking with doves that answered with the voices of the 7.
Wow.
Still, the common people revere Baelor as the Blessed. They tell of how he forced a High Lord to wash a beggar's feet, fasted to tame his unnatural lusts, and walked the bone way himself to make peace with Dawn. Many Septons and Scepters even claim that Baelor rescued his cousin, the Dragon Knight from a snake pit, because no viper would strike a man so pure and holy. A lie. Bela was bitten 12 times and was bedridden for half a year. And yet he didn't die, nor did his high septons ruin the faith. Blessed Bela's statue may greet men outside the doors, but when men enter the Great Sept, they don't see the gold, or the crystal, or the ambitions of a humble member of a powerful dynasty. They see the gods. They feel awe at the divine majesty and their own insignificance. The gods work through Bela's pride and vanity as they work through all of us. For the faith is more than a sept. The faith is more than a high septon, more than all the septons and scepters who preach to the living, more than the silent sisters who prepare the dead. The faith is the will of the gods, and we are all its instruments. Kings and beggars, lords and cobblers, lions and sparrows.
Lions and sparrows. It's an interesting thought process. That the gods are just work. Even the most evil deeds are the acts of the gods acting through them. Yeah, I don't buy it, even in real life. But all right, I don't have too much to say about that. It was just interesting that scene with going through the septas. I already forgot what they're called. The women who prepare the bodies of the dead. Old Town. Grand Maester Pycelle and Qyburn comment on the history of Old Town, painting two very different pictures of the city. Ooh, I like that. They're going to be at odds with each other, I'm guessing. I wonder if they're going to bicker with each other during this, or if it's just two different narratives.
Without question, Old Town is the oldest, wealthiest, and greatest city in Westeros.
Though King's Landing is more populous, and arguably more powerful.
The city straddles the mouth of the Honeywine River, and the bounty of the entire Reach flows beneath its great stone bridges.
Honeywine
Ports
River?
that are renowned throughout the world.
Thus we needn't speak more of them. More interesting is the history of the city, for none can say when it was founded. Many centuries ago, a few bold maesters sought out the children of the forest, who claimed that men have lived at the mouth of the Honeywine since the Dawn Age.
Nonsense.
Nonsense.
Later Jellicoe proved that the city began as a trading post, where ships from Valyria, Old Geese, and the Summer Isles put in to replenish their provisions and make repairs. Hence the most famous feature of the city, the High Tower, raised even before the city walls, as a beacon through the fog-covered waters. Originally built of wood and standing a mere 50 feet above the ancient fortress of its foundation, it is now thick stone and rises even taller than the wall. Those born and raised in Old Town can tell the time of day by where its shadow falls.
But no maester can tell why. Even in our oldest records, the island on which it stands is called Battle Isle. What battle was fought there, and when? As for the ancient fortress that forms the tower's base, its walls and interiors are all of solid black stone with no hints of joins or mortar, and no chisel marks of any kind. We know it predates the tower itself by thousands of years, but who built it? How? And against what?
The maesters who have studied it declare it to be a Valyrian construction, akin to Dragonstone and the Black Walls of Volantis. As is well known, the Dragon Lords of Valyria could turn stone to liquid with dragon flame to shape as they wished.
Didn't one archmaester link the fortress to the vanished maze makers of Lorath?
What?
And another maester
That's
to
so
the
cool.
legendary
I actually want to go in a
who
maze.
inhabited the Iron
Try it out.
Islands before
Never
the
been in a
Iron.
maze before.
Both marginal opinions without common support. But of more importance than the origin of the tower is the family to which it gave its name. House Hightower, the ancient ruling family of Old Town, known for their prudence and love of peace.
And pieces of gold.
During the Age of Heroes, when Lymond Hightower saw the Gardener Kings conquering the Reach, he didn't beat them on the battlefield, but in the God's Wood. He bound his house to theirs by marriage, and transformed House Hightower from wealthy but relatively minor kings to the greatest lords of the Reach. Thanks to Lord Lyman's foresight, Highgarden has always defended Old Town, allowing the Hightowers to focus on higher
I didn't
pursuits
realize
such as
they were in the
learning and
Reach.
trade.
On that we agree. When the Andals invaded Westeros, Lord Dorian Hightower told his wife of 20 years that wars are bad for trade, and to make his point, traded her for a young Andal princess.
What?
When Aegon the Conqueror was earning his name,
Wow.
House Hightower traded its loyalty to the Gardeners for his confirmation of their rights, welcoming him with open arms and open gates.
House Hightower bent the knee to Aegon to spare the city from his dragons. I would think such insinuations and insults beneath even you, Qyburn. Then again, mockery of one's betters is the trade of fools.
I wouldn't know. Perhaps if I'd studied at the Citadel as long as you, Grand Maester?
The Citadel is the greatest seat of learning in the known world. Without it, and the maesters it trains, Westeros would be a land of superstition and ignorance.
Like the ignorance that shrouds the Citadel's own birth?
Even without records, we have more than enough reason to believe that the Citadel began as a court of scholars and priests, assembled by a second son of House Hightower.
Second son.
When he died, his elder brother raised the Citadel so that wise men would always have a home in Westeros and could continue the inquiries and debates that had given such joy to his younger brother.
His little brother's pets, as legend has it, he called them, and so the Maesters have remained, only their masters have changed. Now they serve every lord with a castle, for a fee, of course, whilst the Citadel serves its own importance.
Every word you speak merely validates your own expulsion from our ranks.
Knowledge is validation enough. I assumed the world's greatest minds would agree, and perhaps they would if I'd met them. Old Town is a city for old men and old beliefs. But the world is changing. No matter how high the tower, the clouds will not hold it up if the ground shifts beneath it.
Ugh. That was really great. That was really great. Seeing those two disagree with each other and snipe at each other was really fun. Yeah, it's it's an interesting debate. I think there is a place outside of the Citadel for. There should be more than one place that gathers such maesters. They're stuck in their own little bubble there. They learn about all the things in that library, but I don't know how much they can learn unless they leave. And then if people outside come in, they won't even listen to them. Alright. The King's Moot. Euron Greyjoy explains the history of the King's Moot, the tradition by which a new king of the Ironborn is chosen by his or her people. Or her. Didn't happen yet, because... Yeah, just back to the Citadel thing, it just... there can't be one center for learning and that's it. I feel like that means everybody who comes from the Citadel has the same biases and same belief system. I mean, I guess there must be some diversity there, but I don't know. Just everybody coming from the same background after they arrive at the Citadel. Yeah, there is a place for what Qyburn's doing. He probably shouldn't be allowed to do some of the human experimentation things, but there are rules that I feel like they might have taken too seriously. They might take too seriously at the Citadel. I don't know. There's a middle ground there. All right. Anyway, the King's Moot. I don't know. You guys might disagree with me a lot. I don't know what I think really. I have to find out more about what happened there.
Kingdoms, but the Iron Islands have hundreds. Every ship on the waves is a
Kraken.
kingdom, and every captain on his deck is a king.
Is it Kraken?
Mainlanders will bow to a man whose only claim is dropping out of the right cunt. But the
What?
Ironborn spend their lives at sea. We know that if a captain is weak, his men drown. If he's foolish, his men drown. But if he's strong, his men carve their names into the world with blood, steel, and song.
What happened to your fleet though
Any man
before?
with a ship may claim the Salt Throne, but the rest of the Ironborn have to give it to him in the Kingsmoot.
Kingsmoot.
Our priest claimed the first king of the Iron Islands was the Great King, who ruled over the sea itself in the dawn of days. He took a mermaid to wife and stole fire from the storm god.
A mermaid?
He carved the first ship from a demon tree that fed on human flesh. When
What?
he died, his 100 sons slaughtered each other until only 16 remained.
100?
Since none could overpower the rest in battle, they came together and chose the strongest to be their king. And
What?
so began the tradition of the Kingsmoot.
That's ridiculous.
A good story for children who don't know the grey is what men become after their strength has fled, or that brothers do not easily submit.
Huh.
Over the centuries, the Kingsmoot has raised the greatest of the Ironborn. Corrid
Oh, it became the
whose
crown.
word was law whenever men could smell the salt air or hear the crash of waves. He sacked Old Town and defeated the River King, taking 3 young sons as hostages. When their father's tribute was late, Corrid cut out their hearts with his own hand. When the father marched for vengeance, Corrid smashed his army and gave this River King to the drowned god. Harwin
River King.
Horror, born to a king who had a fleet he didn't sail and swords he didn't blood. As an unruly and worthless youngest son, Harwin was sent away to the east to vanish, and so he did. But when his father died, Harwin returned to the Island Islands for the Kingsmoot. An elder brother objected, so an elder brother fell off a horse, and at the Kingsmoot no man objected. Harwin launched his father's ships for Westeros and took 10 times the Iron Islands from its weak lords, who never expected to face an Ironborn king as skilled on land as at sea. For Harwin had reaved with Eastern pirates and served with Eastern
Jeez.
sellswords and learned more of war than the Ironborn could imagine. After Aegon and his dragons burned our last king, Harren the Black, and broke our armies, the defeated Ironborn chose my ancestor, Rickon Greyjoy, as Lord of the Iron Islands. Not
Rickon
king.
Greyjoy?
For centuries after, the Kingsmoot was a joke that the Ironborn didn't get. When a Lord Greyjoy died, the captains would meet and choose his eldest son to succeed him. Of course, they argued over it just long enough to show they weren't now like the very mainlanders they despised. Once more, we have a true king, my own brother Balon, who had the balls to seize the Driftwood crown, but not the brains to hold it. He is the first king the Iron Islands have had in centuries, and the fool would be the last. The Kingsmoot once chose him over me. They will not have that choice next time.
Euron freaking Greyjoy. Alright, that was really interesting. Yeah, that was really interesting. Euron's a bit touched in the head from the few scenes we've seen of him, but yeah, looking forward to see what he does this season, and hopefully you enjoyed this history and lores, these last few videos. I guess by the time you see this, you will have already seen... We'll be several episodes into season 7 already, so I'll probably know more about Euron by then. But yeah, that's gonna be it for this time, guys. Hopefully you're enjoying season 7, and I'll see you guys soon for season 7 history and lore. All right, bye, friends.